Hello, everybody. We are now live on air. Well, not live, but when you're watching this, but we're live at the moment for us.
We're on air as well, I suppose.
So we are. Today we have an album for you that we're going to review. So, yeah, I mean, let's have a look at what it is.
Okay.
You can see the enthusiasm on my face here. So it's... we're going to be listening to an album called Yachtmaster from Ultraboss. Are you familiar with Ultraboss? No, I didn't think so.
No, I'm not Boss. No, sorry. Oh, sorry, it's called Ultraboss. Yeah.
Right. So
No Boss.
I was looking through this. There's not really much we can gather from, obviously, just from the tracks here. It's a 51-minute long album.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, I think the person who requested this, I think this might be from. I don't know. I've got no notes on it, but someone's requested it. Now, the reason I get a bit worried by this is because when I scroll down to More by Ultraboss, I look at these album covers and they don't seem like the sort of music we'd probably like based on the album covers. They seem a bit heavy metalish, a bit hard. I don't know. And this is, what's it called? This is Shrewd Wave, Slave to the Passion. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the saying always goes, never judge a book by its cover.
Yeah, which I am doing.
But yeah. I think with CDs, I think you can judge a little bit because you do get a generally better idea rather than a cover on a book. But you never know. I
don't know what this is. It might be amazing. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, the unknown. We do always have that apprehensive sometimes with the unknown, but I do always like something completely new, something different, because you just have no idea. And I think actually not, in the last few we've maybe done where there's been the unknown, actually have been really enjoyable. I think even one of them, The Night Game, which actually would consider buying the album and stuff. So you just never know. It's just difficult with those use as, and I'm sure you've heard it in your voice as well when it's almost an hour long. So if it's something really good, hey, it's not about it. If it's something that you're really not gonna like and you've got an hour's worth of it, it's tough. It's hard, but going in open-minded, and we'll see what it brings.
Yeah, we'll give it a go. We're going to be back with you guys in just a moment, having listened to the album. Hopefully we'll be in good spirits. Hi everyone, we've now listened to the album, so we're going to go ahead and talk about it. So the first song was called Where the People Dance. So as I always say, first songs are pretty major in the sense that it gives you the first impression of what's to come, usually, unless it's some kind of like introduction part. So this one, at the beginning, sort of thought, okay, this is quite rocky, had a rocky feel to it, but I thought the lyrics actually sounded okay. So the lyrics came a little bit later. There's a little bit of instrumental, rocky instrumental. I was like, okay, where's this going? But once the lyrics came on, I was like, okay, not bad. Now, this felt like real 80s rock / pop. And I put it feels very, very 80s. Better than what I was expecting, based on what we talked about in the introduction, where it seems like, was it like a skull? I don't know. I thought it was going to be like really heavy. It wasn't. I didn't mind this song. The lyrics, I thought, were more powerful than the rock sounds. Sometimes when you listen to music, especially if it's rock music, the rock can come over kind of overpowering. And if you're not too keen on that, which I'm not, then that's not a good thing. So it was good that the lyrics were very prominent. So yeah, it had a pleasant feel to it, and it was a decent start to the album.
Yeah, cool. So if anyone's doing a drinking game to this video, your words for today, I think, are going to be 80s and guitar riff. And I think that's your game today if you're doing a drinking game. Exactly like you, when it sort of opened up after we'd just done the sort of introduction of what we thought it might have been like. Even I quite like right, as soon as it came on, I was thinking, oh my God, is this going to be an hour of sort of this coming in? I don't know if I'm ready to handle this today. Maybe I'll put it off and maybe listen to it another time. But then eventually the introduction sort of passed and we had the singing, and I just said, yeah, cliche 80s. I mean, we have 80s stuff all through this one here, but so much so. But yeah, and I put the exact same three words here: 80s rock pop. Exactly on there. It felt like what it reminded me of, and I've put it again for somebody's sort of track coming here. Different parts in different movies. So this felt like a track that I can imagine at the end of an 80s movie. I don't know if you can picture the scene here, Lee, where it's the end of the movie, the credits coming up, and you've got your sort of your characters who've been in the movie, and they're sort of doing something funny, and then it'll freeze with their picture, and then we'll have like a little bio of like what's happened to them there and after. Like so and so's now left high school and gone on to be a music teacher, wherever it would be. The music would be so fitting for that, I thought. But yeah, a really good sort of opening, enjoyable 80s pop rock song to listen to.
Okay. Next track was When It's Love. So I put a note here. I said I'm not going to keep mentioning the 80s feel, as it's clear that's their style. The whole album's going to have that style, so it's kind of pointless mentioning it every time. Although I do actually end up mentioning it a fair bit in the following tracks. And so this song had that rock feel to it, like in the first track, but just wasn't overpowering at all. And had a long instrumental as well. So again, it was all right. It was fairly decent.
Yeah, I think I'll struggle if I'm not allowed to say 80s or guitar riff in my view. I've got nothing else to really sort of talk about. So yeah, so this one sort of pretty much carries on from the track before. I think as you said there, I think a little bit lighter, just a little bit softer in a way, but not by much. Really hard to sort of again pick up on the lyrics. And this again, I don't think the lyrics are going to be that important or that meaningful with this, but just found it was hard to pick up there. What have I put here from the movie? Oh yes, it could be sort of like opening credits potentially on this part. So, if it was in a movie kind of thing. And what I did mention with the previous one as well. Again, I don't want to try and say it too often, but I'm going to have to because it's going to say. So for every one of these songs, we have got this sort of some point between sort of the middle and towards the end. Sort of these guitar riffs or instrumental bits, real 80s, really poppy rock, and they're all unique in their own way for each song. So I know we'll probably talk more about right at the end in terms of variation of the songs in the album, but it does feel there would be variation, but at the same time there isn't at the same time. But I think we'll come on to that a bit more at the end. So yeah, nice little guitar riff there, and I'm sure we'll have a few more of those along the way.
Yeah, next track was Talking to the Wind. This one had a nice start. I felt that this track felt more pop rather than rock, at least so far, but I guess that's how it continued. Thought it was quite a nice song. I've put here a typical 80s pop hit that never was, because obviously it wasn't around in the 80s, it's a new song, but it just felt like it would have been quite a big, I don't know, or typical sort of 80s pop song. Best song so far out of the three. I think I preferred this one because it was, I don't know, like I say, it just felt more poppy than rocky.
Yeah, exactly the same. I've even written here my favourite so far, so let's tick that one off the way. Actually, a bit more of a slower pace to this one. So 80s. Again, I put here for this my 80s movie. I can imagine here, boy meets girl kind of things. It has more sort of a romantic kind of feel to that one there. And at this point, this is another cliche 80s bit we've got here. The saxophone sound with Sons having this one in the background makes it a little bit different here. What I quite liked with this one, as well, is that we haven't talked about with the artist, so it seems like one of the research I did, it's just one guy. It's actually so much a band. I think it's just one guy or one lead main guy. But in this particular song, it sounds like there's like two different singers or two similar singers. But I guess it's just him doing his voice and then playing around there and just re-recording it to do the same again. So it gave sort of a nice kind of bit more depth to it, I would say. But yeah, favourite so far. Nice song.
Track 4 was Visions of Never. So I wasn't so keen on the start of this song. I felt this one sort of had a more kind of techno feel to it. Still no lyrics. Like nothing was really happening. There was a bit of a change in the instrumental sound now, but there were no lyrics throughout. Then I kind of found it was a bit rocky and boring. So I suppose looking back, I kind of appreciate it in a way that it was different, that they've gone for a track that, without lyrics, just with the instrumentals, but don't know, it didn't really do it for me.
Yeah, so that's why I thought this could be like a really sort of good opening title scene because of the lack of sort of lyrics and stuff there. Again, so we'll slow right down, and yeah, as you said there, I think like almost like an electro kind of feel of 80s stuff. So I put here, it actually reminds me a little bit of Pet Shop Boys, have this sort of long sort of intro bit from there, and then towards the end it did get a bit more rocky, but not really hard rock. So I put here like Genesis kind of rock that again really sort of 80s kind of rock feel to it. It's good. It's good. Sometimes a little bit different on the album, even though actually it's quite similar in some of the parts to what we've had already. And I just finished off by saying that I'm not as good as the previous track.
Track 5 was Night Cry. I just put, oh, wow, so 80s. It's hard to believe it's not from the 80s. Another pop song, so more on the pop side rather than rock, I thought. This was pretty good. Right up there with Talking to the Wind, which is track 3. Had a catchy chorus, and for me, best song so far.
Oh, interesting. Okay, cool. Yeah, so 80s. So I think what I enjoyed from this one was made it a little bit different to really keep that 80s kind of thing. So we've had guitar riffs in all of these songs so far. So we've got it again in this one, but this time it's not with a guitar. It's with a keyboards guitar. Do you know actually what one of those is actually called? That classic 80s kind of feel. Looks like a keyboard played like a guitar.
Oh, yes, of course I know what that's called. That's called a xylophone or something. I don't know.
Didn't know how to take where you were going to go with that one, whether you actually really did know or what was going to happen there. So yeah, it's called a keytar. So it's just like a keyboard and guitar.
Never heard of it. Okay.
No, there you go. So whilst we're on the 80s stuff, just you've got to learn about a keytar. But yeah, really good stuff. I'm surprised you've probably put his favourite so far. Well, I don't know if I'm that surprised actually. It's quite good, but yeah, no, another good, I think, solid song for the album.
Okay. So track 6 was Flow of My Tears. This one seems like a slow song, an 80s pop ballad. I appreciate the song for the fact it's a little bit different, but don't like it nearly as much as some of the more upbeat previous songs. It just felt it was a little bit dull for me, this one.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, so we've gone slow right down with this one. So if I'm going back to like my movie scenes and stuff, so I can imagine like a boy and girl sort of either breaking up or maybe even getting back together. Just has that sort of emotional ballad sort of feel to it from there. I kind of actually got a bit more of a sort of almost like a boy band kind of thing, or like a real song where you sort of like slowly waving your hands or with candle in the air. Again, another sort of cliches 80s kind of thing there. And of course, there is a classic guitar riff in this one, but a nice sort of slow ballad type one. It's weird because it kind of does sound the same as the others for those type of songs. But I think because it's just been that slowed down that little bit, it kind of seems different on this one here.
Right. So the next track was number 7, No Stranger in the Rain. This one was going back to the more rocky side, it seems. And I thought, or perhaps not. Just typical 80s pop. It's okay, but doesn't stand out for me. Perhaps a little too low key for me. But maybe I was being a little bit harsh there.
Yeah, this had a bit more sort of difference to it. So we not that long ago reviewed The Night Game, which also had sort of 80s kind of feel to it. This kind of felt more along those lines, and I think maybe it's because it has it kind of had the rock to it, but in a less way. It was really weird sort of thing there. Of course, we've got sort of this 80s kind of style to here, but I think what I mean is I think it's the song that felt the most modern. Like, it's the first time where I've probably felt and listened to it and thought, oh yeah, I had to remind myself, actually this is an album from like this year, and it's not an actually 80s. But it kind of really put that back into perspective. Really, it felt that little bit more sort of modern to it. We had the riff at some point in the middle towards the end. This I'm not a guitar one. I think it was more of a keyboard riff. What I've written here from what I remember. I don't actually really remember that being happening in the song, but that's what I've put from there. So we still got the riff, just done a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm. So next up we had Messed Up. This is the shortest song on the album, but it's still not that short because most of the songs are quite long. Has quite a rocky sound to it. It's not one of the better songs. I prefer the more upbeat songs, and this wasn't one of those for me.
Yeah, I haven't got a lot to say on this one. This one going right into the singing, and I said because I think it was a short track, but again, as you said, not that short. It's also quite long. It still feels like this kind of sort of modern 80s kind of music, but still true to that sort of 80s style. Of course, we obviously have the guitar riff, and I've just put my main comment here. This is probably one I felt most bored of so far, and I'm not sure why really. Maybe it's a case of this stage where actually there is variation in some regards to the album, but this is what I was saying at the start. But at the same time, probably not. There is a lot of similarities, same 80s kind of feel, the guitar riff. I feel like I'm saying the same sort of thing. So yeah, I just felt maybe at this point I was that little bit bored.
Okay, track 9 was Prisoner of the Night. I thought this one was a bit better. Feels a bit more upbeat. It's like more on the poppy side rather than the rocky side. Maybe not as good as Night Cry and No Stranger in the Rain though. So along the same sort of lines, maybe I'd have it up there in third place possibly.
So yeah, I was really worried from the track before where I was mentally now with the album. Because I thought, okay, this is end. But this song for some reason really perked me back up again, and I don't know why. It felt exactly like the earlier tracks, bit more sort of upbeat. This one definitely felt a bit more head bopping as well. For some reason, I was liking his voice a lot more in this one. It seems like I think maybe I was hypnotized at some point for that, and I'd say this is actually probably my favorite one on the album so far, but from a way off compared to some of the others, and I'm not sure why.
Okay. I think it was just a better song. It was a bit more catchy. Track 10, More Than Ever Tonight. An 80s slow pop song. Again, not one of my favourites. I just prefer these sort of songs to be more up-tempo. But it was still quite a nice, typical 80s song, though, overall.
Yeah, so again, this was another song I actually quite liked. So yeah, it's sort of this ballad kind of start that went from before really, and again I can't quite sort of put my finger on it, but at this point I was thinking, oh yeah, this is another really song I actually quite like. I think for this one it just felt a bit more, I put here, so a bit more powerful, a bit more emotion. So whether I was picking up more on the lyrics a bit more, or the singing was coming through a bit more, because again I've said I'm really still liking his voice, and I don't know why, like, it hasn't changed. I don't know what's been different from the start of the album to now. It's just sort of a strange thing. Maybe I was just trying to pump myself up to get through to the rest of the album, and just it's kind of strange move from there. So yeah, these last two tracks we just had, really, really good. My favourite so far.
So the penultimate track was Master of Disguise. I don't have many notes for this. Maybe I was getting a little bit bored of the album, or I don't know. It was a bit harsh, but I don't know. We'd listened to it for quite a long time. It's always difficult, when you're just sitting there literally trying to make notes, so the song's not really able to really just, I don't know, relax and have it on in the background. So that doesn't help. We've talked about that before. So just felt like quite a typical song on the album. didn't really stand out for me. Perhaps if this had been earlier on in the album, I might have felt differently about it.
Yeah, so straight. I can't disagree with what you're saying with that one there. I actually haven't got a lot of notes here, but all I have got is smiley faces around the song. Going again, I'm still really liking it, and to be honest, like even though it's probably similar to like the earlier tracks, which we never probably said at the start because we were going to probably do a song for the end, but this is my sort of type of music. I do really sort of enjoy this, but I was finding from the album that maybe there was nothing sort of stand out ish and felt kind of the same. And even these next tracks I really like, I still wouldn't say they're standout tracks, but I'm just really digging them and just really enjoying them. As it's got the same sort of thing that's had all the way through. So I can't quite put my finger on it, but I'm really enjoying this album and this song.
Okay, so the last track was Wall of Dreams, quite a ballady type of song, quite a nice song too. I quite like the main part where it livens up a bit. Sort of described as a pleasant but unspectacular song to end the album.
Oh, nice wording there. I really like that. Yeah, so again, I must be still on a very much high of this album because for me it just seems to be getting better in my eyes. There, this is probably then overall became sort of my favourite song of the album. But I think I probably will need to go back and actually digress and look at them a bit more. But what I think I did like with this one, I think it had a good mixture of all the stuff we've had before. So we had a little bit of the rock elements, but not too much. Very much the pop 80s kind of thing there. The ballad elements as well. Elements of the boy band that we had earlier. I found in this one here. We had a piano riff. We had a saxophone riff, as well as some guitar instrumentals as well. So I think an overall really good round out. I think if I would have to pick a song, it probably was this one because it had that mixture of there. But as we come to this conclusion, I didn't want to probably maybe go back to the album and actually listen again without having to digress the songs deeply and just see what actually sort of really sticks out as a song I really enjoy.
Okay. So that's it. That's the end of the album review. We're now going to sum up. But before we do, I want to focus a little bit on you here, Backstreet Brett. Because when I was listening to this, I was like, oh my God, this is so Backstreet Brett. Like,
yeah.
Oh, I thought you'd be digging this. And based on, what you've been saying, see, I've got an idea of what you feel about it. So I will be interested to get your overall thoughts. I remember was it called Dog Days or Dog Years or something? And that was an album you wanted to buy, but you couldn't get it. It wasn't available. So I'm wondering if it's going to be the same with this one. You're going to try and buy this. Like, how much of a fan of this are you? So I'm quite looking forward to your overall opinion on it. But I'll go first.
Okay.
So for me, okay, as an overall album, it was quite interesting. It was pretty good. I've never heard anything like this before from like a modern thing, like from the 80s. But although we have, obviously, like the album we were just talking about, the dog, it was called the Dog Years. That was also, along the same lines. So yeah, it's just kind of weird because it really did feel like I was listening to music from the 1980s, not modern music. So yeah, there was quite a few, about 2 or 3 songs that I quite liked. I quite like the style of it. So overall, pretty good. Probably as good as could be expected. The reason I say that is because I don't particularly like 80s music in general. So I think the reason someone has requested or given us suggestions for all these 80s albums is because I think there must have been an album review we did where you mentioned something about you like 80s music. And
that's probably my fault, yeah. I'll take the hit for that one.
Yeah, so now I'm lumbered with all these bloody 80s sounding albums that, like I say, I don't particularly like the 80s music. I like 60s music, I like 70s, I like 90s music and beyond, but not the 80s. I don't know. Generally, I'm not a big fan of it. It's very unique. So that's why, despite that, I still actually quite like this overall. So it's pretty good. So over to you.
Yeah, I should have probably made some notes so I don't miss any points made there. Just the first point, just with the the 80s things, yeah. So Project probably was my thing to say, because I do have a soft spot for sort of the 80s genre of music. And it's funny, I know a lot of international people won't get this reference, but I think the 80s decade of music is very Marmite. I think, and for people who don't know that reference, the other people who really love it or they don't, because it's sometimes just a little bit too out there and maybe seem too experimental in some regards. I don't know, but yeah. So I obviously do have a soft spot for it. Dog Years by the Night Game, which we talked about, I definitely preferred that album as a whole much more. As you said, was looking to buy it and couldn't. And I have listened to it again since on my streaming site.
Yeah.
I did enjoy it. Yeah.
Getting better? You enjoy it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I said there's still a couple of standout songs which, when they come on, I'm like, yeah, really enjoy those ones there. And the reason I think, not the reason why I think I prefer it more, but I think the difference with this one, with the Night Game, you still could feel, even though it had an 80s influence, it still felt different and modern. Whilst this one, like I said before, I generally forgot this was actually a modern album. It was that's so 80s from it.
So authentic.
So authentic, yeah, that's probably a much better word to say. And as you saw, like I didn't have any sort of complaints to say for it. I wasn't enjoying it, but for me at the start, just sort of enjoying it for, okay. I think because I thought it was going to be really not quite what I thought it was going to be, and turns out it wasn't, really sort of hard rock or something there. I'm sort of enjoying there. And then, strange enough, even though I thought I was getting bored of it, by the end of it, those are the tracks that sort of really stuck out for me a bit more. So I feel like some of a lot of the previous albums, in not like with Night Game, where I think I'd happily have maybe one of these two songs on a playlist. As an album as a whole, no, but like I said, I still really did enjoy it, and there's definitely nothing bad of it. Didn't have sort of the standout songs there. But again, as I was saying, I would probably listen to it again. But in terms of the album, I think it's the one where I like to probably take a couple of random tracks from that and have that on a playlist.
Okay, fair enough. So yeah, that's it from us. By the way, did you listen to any of the other albums? Like the one with the skull, just to see what that was like.
What different songs of different albums from this band?
This band, but a different album.
No, I haven't.
All right, well, maybe we'll do that now once we go off, stop recording, just out of interest. I'm quite intrigued as to what the other stuff's like. Was that just one album they've done in that style, or is that what they're like all the time? So that's it from us. Keep the requests coming. We'll see you again soon for the next one. Thank you. Goodbye.